All right, so today I want to talk a little bit more about gun control. It's something I like talking about for many reasons, but I mean, the big one being the government of Canada is currently trying to ban guns. Not all of them, but it will set a precedent that they can just ban whatever guns they want for whatever reason. And it's a very big issue for many reasons. Number one, why in the world should a government have the ability to ban something with no evidence to back up said ban, and number two, just act as basically a dictatorship and do whatever they want. Um, but I think the main reason, like people point out stuff when it comes to the gun ban, oh, it's unconstitutional, they're acting like dictators, there's no vote on it or whatever, but I think the big thing that should be talked about is there's no reason to do it in the first place. Like, if you look at all the guns on the list, I believe they've killed like 20 to 25 people in Canadian history. So we're talking about one a year tops. Like, again, the main gun they're going after is the AR-15, even though I don't believe there's a documented murder that's been committed with an AR-15 in Canadian history, even though there's probably in the hundreds of thousands of them in Canada again. So if there's such, this is the one thing that the left argues that's entirely contradictory, which is why they always come back to the whole emotional mumbo jumbo argument they come up with, is that on one hand they'll be like, oh, the AR-15 is a killing machine, it's designed for killing the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time. Well, if it's such an effective killing machine, then why in the world has it never killed anyone, right? Like, it's absolute insanity. Like, it's absolute insanity. Like, it's so insane. It's not even funny. So, I mean, getting into it, there's this case in Edmonton. Man shot by Edmonton police had gun, was breaking lifetime firearms ban. And then there was the case in Montreal about a week ago. Man arrested in Old Port shooting, was under 5 firearms bans. So again, the main point being here is that gun control doesn't do anything to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. And this is the problem. Another entirely contradictory idea that the left comes up with and the gun control zealots come up with is that their argument essentially is based around um, we need more gun control because the current amount of gun control doesn't work. And they never put it like that. They never put it like that, because if they put it like that, it would make a lot more people be like, hey, what, you're saying we need more gun control because the current gun control doesn't work? That doesn't make any sense. But that's what they're saying, right? Because if the current amount of gun control was working, then why in the world would we need more? And if we do need more, then how do we know that it's going to do anything? Like, we don't, because like I say, they're arguing that, oh, well, we need more gun control because the current amount of gun control doesn't work. Like, essentially, criminals are, enough people are breaking the current gun control to the point to where we need to address it, but rather than actually addressing the issue, we're just going to ban more guns and we're going to have more gun control. Like, it's just such insanity, it's not even funny. And this is the way that these people are manipulating you, right? They're just manipulating you because their argument is centered around the fact that we need more gun control because the current gun control isn't working. And these are the same people that when the current gun control was implemented, they would have insisted that it would have reduced crime, even though it isn't in many areas. Now, here's the other problem too: is that um, it's not a gun control thing. Like, if you look at where where the vast majority of shootings are coming out of, they're coming out of the big cities. Well, what is something that's going on in the big cities? Well, number one, the gun ownership rate is much lower in the big cities than it is in the rural areas. Like, I grew up in rural Alberta, and the gun ownership rate there it's very high. Like, my guess is that if you look at adult men between the ages of like 20 and 60, probably half the people own guns, right? So the gun ownership rate in the rural areas is much higher than in the cities. But it's the cities where all the crime is coming from. So again, there's so many pieces of evidence that point towards it not being a gun thing or a gun control thing. It is a city thing and it is a government thing, right? Like, if the government wanted to reduce crime, what they would do is they would drastically cut back on restrictions to everyday citizens. I think that there should be um, the everyday citizen should have a much greater right to defend themselves. Like, the fact that in Canada, like, the self-defense laws are almost designed to benefit criminals. In a way, they're designed to benefit the criminals, right? Because the storage laws when it comes to guns, the bar is set so high to using force is to the point to where it pretty much benefits the criminals. So that is a big problem. But the other thing being too is that I think there's many things. I mean, the other thing too would be the immigration thing, the fact that you bring in these immigrants from the third world, they commit crime at a much higher rate than the average citizen. Again, the left would deny that, but the numbers are very clear on that. It couldn't be any more clear. Um, and I mean, not to mention too, you talk to some of these cops in the inner cities. I mean, I know people that are in the industry, and they say, yeah, it's when you look at these crimes, you look at the Somalis, you look at the people from the Middle East, they're clearly overrepresented when it comes to committing crime, and it's not racism. Like, that's absolutely laughable to pretend that it has anything to do with racism. So that's something we should be addressing. I mean, the other things being is that we need tougher penalties on criminals. Like, when it comes to criminal justice reform, it's so obvious it's not even funny, and you'd think we could get the majority of people to agree on this, because I think the majority of people agree on half of it, in that non-violent crimes shouldn't be punished as severely as they currently are, or like drug possession, crap like that, should not be punished as severely as what it is right now. But on the flip side, violent crimes should be punished more severely, i.e., like, especially like gun stuff and other violent stuff, like the fact that you have the classic case of the guy, the drug dealer being in jail for, and here's the other thing too, a lot of times drug dealers are involved in other violent stuff, so that would play into it. But if you're simply someone who has a large, possession of drugs, like you get sent to jail for a year, and the guy that, has an illegal handgun gets sent to jail for 6 months, like, to me that's just pure insanity. But that's the problem, is that you look at these people that are committing these crimes, they're not getting punished. I mean, in rural areas, there is, in Alberta and other areas, there's a growing issue of crime, in specific areas, but nonetheless it's a growing issue. And you talk to the police officers about these people, and they're like, yeah, these people, eventually we catch them, they get sent to jail for a month or two, and they're right back out doing the same thing over again. And here's the other thing too. When it comes to the more rural areas, it's also overwhelmingly natives that are doing this kind of stuff. But the problem with that is that the minute you bring that kind of stuff up, you're viciously attacked as, oh, racist. Well, no, it's not racism. It's simply simple reality, right? Like, it's just, and this is the problem too, is that I think these issues are so bad, or at the very least they appear to be bad, because we're not allowed to talk about the actual issues, right? Like, we're not allowed to talk about the actual issues. And not to mention too, like I say, people are focused on the complete wrong issues. You look at these people that are pushing gun control, and you can tell they're insane, because you talk to these people and you get them talking, and you eventually come to the point to where they'll be flat out fine to admit that they're okay with spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money to ban guns, even if it has no effect on crime. Like, that's just how insane these people are. They really don't care about the actual issues, because all they're worried about is, they're people that are driven by emotions. They're not driven by objective reality or any of that kind of stuff. And it's just, it's pure insanity. And this is the problem, I mean, with democracy in general, is that you're the most rational, objective people are never the ones that are going to decide where society goes. It's always the most emotional, hysterical, paranoid people that dictate government policy. And when that happens, you don't get anywhere really as a society. You really don't get anywhere, and that's the sad thing, is that we could be so much more, so much further down the road as a society, but we're held back because of all the paranoid, emotional, delusional people out there. So yeah, I mean, and this is the other thing too, is that it's probably not going to go away. Like, it's probably not going to go away. At this point, it's looking like the Liberals will get reelected whenever that is. The Conservatives don't pose legitimate opposition, um, which is a bad thing, because, like I say, even if the Conservatives went back to their, I mean, they never actually were that principled, but at least there was a point to where they were somewhat principled. I still don't even know if they'd get elected, because, again, immigration's so high. There's so much brainwashing going on. There's so much propaganda put out there by public schools and the mainstream media that I don't know if it's even a fight that's possible to win. But on the flip side, I don't think that people like me and people that are actually aware of this kind of stuff, you have to keep pointing out the truth. Like you have to keep pointing out the truth. But the problem is that, I mean, when it comes to this kind of stuff, my guess is that gun control is going to continue to get ramped up more and more, and because it doesn't work, we know it doesn't work. Even if there was an outright gun ban, it's still incredibly easy to get guns across the border from this. I mean, not incredibly easy, but easy enough that it's not you're not going to have an effect, I guess. That even if guns were outright banned, I don't think they would affect a drug dealer or a gang member, any criminal organization or individual criminal. I don't think it would affect their ability to obtain an illegal firearm whatsoever, like whatsoever. And here's the thing: the vast majority of these people are already obtaining their firearms illegally. I mean, you look at guns recovered in crimes, the numbers show like 85, 90, 95% of these guns are already illegal to begin with. And just because they were legal doesn't necessarily mean that everything along the way was illegal. Like, let's just say that some licensed firearm owner was committed a murder, especially out in public. It's already highly illegal doing what they're doing. Like, even having a non-restricted firearm out in public is already highly illegal, let alone a restricted weapon, right? Like, that's mandatory minimum 6 months, I believe, for having a restricted firearm. I don't know what it is for a non-restricted. But again, that's just the firearms charge, right? And that's even if you're a legal gun owner at the time. So again, if you're a if you're someone who isn't legally allowed to own guns and you have a restricted firearm in public, you're looking at least a year in prison. The problem again is that the problem is, like I say, the court systems are so lenient on these kind of people. I mean, in Canada, we're more worried about someone posting something offensive on Facebook than we are about the local gangbanger, shooting up, doing a drive-by or, shooting up the Crips or the Bloods or whatever opposite side they're not on, right? So again, it's pure insanity. Like I say, like as a society, we've gone so far backwards. I mean, not in every way. I mean, not in every way, but morally, ethically, we've gone so far backwards. It's not even funny. I don't even know if it's possible to repair just how far we've gone. So anyway, I've kind of jumped around a little bit in this video. So again, it's something I wanted to bring up, but nonetheless, these are multiple examples of gun control proving to do nothing. I mean, it's completely pointless. Criminals can easily get guns illegally. Um, whether there's an outright gun ban or whether we have American-style gun laws, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change a thing because there's so many available that the demand will always be met. Like the demand will always be met because there's so many available. So the actual way of going about combating this is to focus on the criminals, is to increase penalties for these criminals. For people that are committing robberies, for people that are committing violent crimes, for people that are caught with illegal weapons, the book should be thrown at these people. And let's stop worrying about legal gun owners. Let's stop worrying about people. Oh, these stupid like ATTs and like all this just like paperwork crime and stuff. It's absolutely insane that a legal gun owner who forgets their ATT gets the same penalty as the guy who has a bunch of priors who's got an illegal restricted weapon. The fact that that's the same thing is absolutely beyond insane. So anyway, I mean, in a nutshell, the laws should be designed to go after people that are not allowed to own guns or people that are doing things that are highly illegal with guns, right? That's what the laws should be designed to combat, but they're not. And for the simple reason that the government doesn't care about reducing crime, because if crime goes up, well, they can just use that as an excuse to gain more power and to push more gun control, right? So if anything, they have an incentive to allow crime to get out of control. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you like it, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check me out on Twitter. Um, also BitChute and Parler, but mainly Twitter. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.